Vision News. Well, good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning on Tell It All Tuesday. And with that, let's get into our Kids Corner.
That money can buy happiness? Well, 6-year-old Ryan was about to learn that some things are richer than gold, like kindness and hard work. One bright morning, Ryan's father told him to visit their farmland outside the city. Ryan thought it would be boring, but he had no idea what he was about to discover. At the farm, Ryan met Taro, a kind farmer boy his age. Taro didn't have fancy clothes or toys, but his big smile made Ryan feel strangely happy. Taro showed Ryan how to water the plants and feed the animals. Ryan's soft hands got muddy, but for the first time he felt joy that money couldn't buy. At lunchtime, Ryan saw Taro sharing his small meal with a bird. Ryan realized that being rich wasn't about owning things, it was about sharing from the heart. Before leaving, Ryan gave Taro his smartwatch. Taro smiled and handed him a small plant, saying, "This will grow if you care for it like a friend." Back home, Ryan placed the plant on his window and whispered, "True riches grow when we share." From that day, Ryan's heart bloomed with kindness. True happiness doesn't come from what we own, but from what we give. Sharing makes hearts rich and turns small moments into treasures of kindness.
Yes, so let's remember to do that. Because there is a saying, is sharing is caring, right? So for all of our young listeners out there. And now with that, let's get into honoring God with our body. So God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect our ears and help us listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over my mouth. God said it. God set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help our hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. And God, please help us to honor you with our body and honor you, God, with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect our feet as we walk along your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. And if you're just joining us here for the first time on Unfiltered Vision News, that is something that we try to say daily, or at least a morning prayer before we get started, just to set our hearts and minds right for the day. So, good morning to everyone out there that's joining us. Check the comments and good mornings, Bud McKenzie. Thank you for always being there. And good morning to you. So, tomorrow is going to be a big day about the 14th Amendment. But before we get into that, I wanted to get back to checking some trending topics on X. Now, I know they fall under my purview, right? They're not all the trending topics, but they are at least the trending topics that are sent my way. So I want to share that with you guys. So here are the top three that I received. So California voter rolls list 126-year-old voters with recent history. So that's interesting. So they're finding out they've got people on their voter rolls that are over 100 years old that have recently voted. Yeah, you heard that right. And then JD Vance accuses Ilhan Omar of immigration fraud on a podcast. And Texas officials block massive Muslim housing project near Dallas. That's going to be a real sticky point of contention. So, with this voter rolls, what's going on? So, a video by Jones, mother of investigator Nick Shirley, showed California's public voter rolls with entries for people over 125 years old, including recent voting activity, prompting renewed pushes for voter laws. Skeptics explained the 1900 birth dates as common placeholders in legacy systems for missing data, backed by a 2025 report confirming thousands of such errors, but no widespread fraud. Huh? Look, when people are voting, they have birth dates. You don't put in placeholders as birth dates. What are you doing? Like, on its face, that sounds crazy. So the clip arrived amid Republican efforts for the SAFE Act, requiring citizenship proof to register. While Democrats warn it creates barriers, experts note voter rolls often include deceased or outdated entries nationwide, right? Highlighting ongoing debates over data accuracy and access. Stop that. What do you mean you're leaving place? Like, just to even say that sounds crazy. In legacy systems for missing data, if data is missing, then that means there's a completely separate role. They're not intertwined in your current roles. Does that make sense to everybody out there? I've dealt with database management. So let's say you have a corrupt role. And when I say corrupt, that means it's missing data. You might be missing a first or last name. The address is wrong because you sent out a polling card, right? That you thought, okay, it's supposed to go to this, but you received it back. Okay, that data would then be corrupt, and you would need to separate them from the current voter rolls. You wouldn't just make a placeholder on your current voter rolls, because then you would corrupt your current voter rolls. Like, what are we doing here? Like, that's basic database administration 101. But let's check this out. Okay, let's see what's going on, y'all. These people are wild, just with the why wild. So this post says Republicans want to sell the Save Trump Act as a voter ID bill. Okay, well, let's see. But that is not the reality. That is what this representative is saying, this senator. From requiring birth certificates to $165 passports, their bill would create expensive obstacles that would bar millions of eligible voters from participating in our upcoming election. Here's the deal: you don't have to have a passport. You can use a passport or an ID or a real ID, but you have to include that with your birth certificate. And that is what this is coming back to. And people that are not naturalized and that are here illegally do not have that paperwork necessarily. Now, the naturalized people that are naturalized, they should have it. They should have their birth certificate because that's how they got naturalized. But somebody who is here illegally and should not be here, visa holders can't vote. Green card holders can't vote. So what are we talking about? Those people are eliminated. So who are we talking about? It's really, really crazy.
More than 140 million Americans, nearly half of American citizens, do not have a passport. And my colleague just said that there are more white Americans who have passports than there are black Americans. So that will already give you an idea of who the Republicans are hoping to discourage from even registering to vote. In addition, more than 21 million eligible voters do not have ready access to documents proving their citizenship.
Why not?
In other words, for tens of millions of Americans, producing these documents it is.
If you were born here, you got your paperwork. What are we talking about, ma'am? And if you're naturalized, you have your paperwork. What are we talking about? Oh, we're talking about people that are here illegally. I'm reading through the lines. Sorry.
Not a simple hurdle. It is a huge barrier. It is a barrier for young people trying to register for the first time, for seniors who no longer have easy access to documents, for working families who can't afford the time or cost of navigating more government paperwork just to register to vote. A new passport costs over $150. If this sounds like a poll tax, a price to exercise our constitutional right to vote, that's because it is. It is a financial burden on Americans at a time when millions are struggling just to put food on the table and pay rent. More than a hundred.
Well, here's my deal, Congress. If you're so, butthurt over it and you have such a bleeding heart, why don't you, since instead of sending maybe billions of dollars into a abyss, why don't you give the American people who don't have a passport a voucher so they can get one? But you know what they're still going to have to get when they get that passport? Their birth certificate. They're still going to have an ID. They'll have to have the same paperwork to get the passport that they will to use to get their voter ID. So put your money where your mouth is. Give everybody who doesn't have a passport a voucher to get one. One time. Right. Just like a one-time constellation. Just like you did amnesty. Why don't you do that? But see, you're not thinking about that because you don't care. You want this to be an issue. You always have. People are disgusting. Okay. So, all right. So, a 126-year-old voter in California just got exposed, probably dead, and still voting blue. This is exactly what Democrats fight tooth and nail against voter ID. So, let's check this out. Start it from the beginning. This voter, okay, here we go.
How many people do you know that are over 126 years old? Well, according to the state of California, there are multiple people that are 126 years old who are still registered to vote, and they voted in the last presidential election. On this list right here, this person, 3/28/1900, voted in the last election. Is this person still alive? I don't know, but according to this list, this person voted in the last presidential election. And this is why we need identification when we go to vote. If this woman had her ID when she went to vote, yeah, we'd be able to see that this person is 126 years old and is voting. But most likely, these people are not alive, but they're still voting. If we had our ID when we went to vote, we'd actually be able to see who was voting. We'd actually be able to know that this person was voting in the 1900s. Most likely, all these people are dead, but they're still voting. We need voter ID so we can actually know who is voting here in America. It's that simple. Show your identification card. We'll be able to match up your birthday to the person who's voting, and we'll be able to clean up our voter rolls. We need voter ID here in America to actually save our voting systems and to have accurate elections.
Yeah. Because, see, California is notorious for it because they sell people's information. That's how, this is how you get 126-year-old people on voter rolls that are still voting because somebody is actually voting in that person's place. And nobody's checking for it. Everybody's just checking the name. Is the name accurate? Is the address accurate? Is there somebody standing before me with this ID? But, oh, that's right. California doesn't require an ID. Yeah. Disgusting. Okay, let's move on. Now, JD Vance accuses Elon Omar of immigration fraud on a podcast. So, during an interview with Benny Johnson, Vance claimed Omar committed fraud and consulted Stephen Miller on investigations trying into Trump's March 16th executive order, creating an anti fraud task force Vance now chairs. The remarks reference long standing rumors of Omar marrying her brother for benefits, which she denies. Amid Minnesota's major fraud scandals like the $250 million Feeding Our Future case involving Somali linked nonprofits. Omar called it a ridiculous lie, while the claims have fueled partisan debate and calls for her deportation, though no charges have been filed against the naturalized citizen. So here's the thing with her situation, and I've gone through it on the show. Her first marriage to her first husband was a quote unquote spiritual marriage. So they filled out the certificate, but it was never legally filed. So, as a record, right, as a filed record, it was never filed with the state. So, technically, I'm just using the, so technically, it was never recognized legally, right? It was more of a spiritual marriage. Then she got married to who people assume is her brother, right? Now, all three of her children are by the first man that she married. That's who fathered her children, the spiritual marriage, right? Then the second marriage was to supposedly, quote unquote, whoever they claim was her brother. Not sure. But then this gentleman, he was married to her, and then he left the country. He living somewhere in Europe. Okay. Then she divorced him because she was legally married to him. Then she got married to the father of her children. Legally, she filed that one. Then she divorced him, and then she got married to the man she's with now. Sound confusing? It is. And the timelines jump back and forth and they're real close together because I'm like, okay, why would you then legally marry the father of your children when you had the opportunity to, but you didn't? So, were you a bigamist at the time? You couldn't be a bigamist because you didn't file the first marriage legally. You just didn't. You filled out the paperwork, you didn't file it. Legally, you weren't married. But then you married who people are claiming your brother. Like I said, then you divorce that guy. Then you legally, why would you get legally married to the father of your children? Like, why would that even be necessary? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you didn't do it the first time, like, why are we here? Taxes. Oh, yeah, there's that too. Huh? There's a lot going on. And in my opinion, yeah, there is some fraud because whoever the second person that she was married to, it wasn't a real marriage because he wasn't even living here in the country with her. They weren't even married or in a relationship long enough to call it a marriage. So on its face, that one is fraud. It is immigration fraud. And yeah, she does need to go to prison. And yeah, she does need to be denaturalized, in my opinion. She has no legs to stand on, like none. Like, look, it's sorry. I was trying to find it. Yes, it's not in here. So that's okay. Mr. Miller. Uh, let's see if we can get this. Get this going.
Ferguson, we're going to see the first ever effort in American history to reclaim the ultimately trillions of dollars we're stolen from taxpayers. I believe, I know President Trump believes, that when this theft is exposed, we will see that if all of it were stopped, it will be enough to balance the budget. The extraction of wealth from American taxpayers to people who don't belong here is the primary cause of the national debt, and it's the first ever effort to shut that down. Thank you. First step, and then everyone else has been cheating for years. It's the first step. It's got to be stopped, and it's got to be stopped. Think of it, Somalia is a third world, maybe a fourth world nation. One of the worst dangerous. They don't have anything. They don't have councils, they don't have government, they don't have police, they shoot each other all over the place. They come here and they steal $19 million. That's crazy. And Ilhan Omar, I hope this is part of it, but she married her brother supposedly. I mean, there's a lot of documentation that means she's here illegally and she's a congresswoman. And I hope you can be looking at that if somebody is, because she's one of the ringleaders here. She's bad news, really bad news. She's so bad for our country.
But like I said, even if that's not her brother, that marriage, which filed, right, would technically be her first marriage. That person decided to leave the country. So you married somebody who left the country? In my opinion, that's what needs to be investigated. Because why would you get married? Because that person was not a legal citizen, by the way. Now, she became a legal citizen under her parents, under the refugee situation. When she turned 17 or 18, she was able to apply for legal citizenship. So at that point, yes, she's a naturalized citizen. So irregardless, in my opinion, whether it was her brother or not, that person that you got married to left the country. What, a year or two into your marriage, and you had stayed married for 7 years. So the marriage didn't even last for 10 years. So it was fraudulent. So that person shouldn't have citizenship, and your citizenship should be revoked for doing that. Just that right there. That's it. We don't have to go any further because, like I said, then you turned around and then divorced him, got married to the father of your children legally, who you were in a spiritual marriage with because you didn't file the paperwork. It gets messy, confusing, and based on that alone, yeah, you need to go. And you definitely shouldn't be in Congress. Okay? You gotta go. All right, let's get to our third trending topic. Okay, so Texas officials block massive Muslim housing project near Dallas. This has been a sticky point in Texas. So the proposed 402-acre meadow development linked to the East Plano Islamic Center planned 1,000 homes, a large mosque, Islamic schools, and amenities in unincorporated Collin and Hunt counties. Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton have halted it through lawsuits, environmental blocks, and new law against Sharia compounds, citing securities, fraud, regulation invasion, and assimilation concerns. Epic calls itself a diverse center open to all, but the project faces ongoing federal fair housing probes and remains stalled with no construction started. Yeah, stop that. Oh, we're open to everybody. No, you're not. Stop lying. Please stop lying. Please. Because if you were open to everybody, there's no reason for this. All you had to do is just develop what you're developing. But you're not. You're definitely creating an enclave. Period. And you want Sharia law. We already know that there are Sharia courts in Texas. Like, bro, the game is up. We already know. We already know. So American Muslims are already practicing Sharia law in Plano, Texas. A Muslim is seen at East Plano Islamic Center with his very underage wife. Investigator says he has 3 underage wives at home. She is his wife. Yes, his wife. Wow. Please spare me your denials of Sharia law. Could never happen in America because it's already happening right here in Plano. That's Plano, Texas. And this is all over. So it is everywhere. He's got 3 more little wives at home too. Yeah. See, they marry these children at 7 or 9 years old. Yeah, that's disgusting. That's called pedophilia in this country. But you know why and here's what I don't understand or grasp. We have laws against pedophilia in this country, but yet there are groups that support pedophilia. There's a congressman in California. He is a pedophile, and he's a congressman. You can look him up. And he wants to basically open up laws to legalize pedophilia. Yeah, this is happening in our country. So, with these individuals marrying these children here on the soil, and it's not just the Muslims, this has been happening for a long time. You look up in Missouri, they have laws where they can marry 12-year-olds. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. With parental consent. California, they don't even have an age limit. You can marry an infant. It's disgusting what is happening in the United States when it comes to this. So seeing this, I'm like, they know they can do it because we have laws to protect these people. We won't even get to the Mormons. Stop it. Oh my.
And she is his wife. Yes, his wife. Please spare me your denials of Sharia law can never happen in America because it's already happening right here in Plano. And this is all over. He's got 3 more little wives at home too, by the way. And she is his.
Yeah. So he's a pedophile. And what are we doing? What are we doing? Just gross. And so sad. So sad. Because this should not be happening. Now, let's get into what's going to be coming tomorrow with birthright citizenship. And we've got some coverage here and commentary from Doc Rich.
Michigan, that's fine. And how are you going to pay for it? And we can move on.
Okay.
So answer the questions, please.
Fine.
Yes.
So if she can have a baby in Michigan,
yes.
Fine.
Okay.
If we can pay for it. If
Very
we
good.
cannot pay for it, then we leave.
Okay, very good. Was that your intention when you guys traveled from Nigeria? You knew that, is that right? You knew that that's what was going to happen?
Yeah, we knew it.
Okay, were you nervous to tell me that?
Yeah, because we didn't know what.
No problem. Listen, I appreciate you telling me the truth.
What are they going to do with us, you know?
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to move to the next step. We'll figure it out. Do you plan on having the baby in Michigan? That's fine.
So there you heard a situation where a young lady from Nigeria was traveling here to the good old United States of America and was going to Michigan. She's pregnant. She planned on having the baby here, which you heard her admit to. But then you heard her say, well, if we can't afford it, then we'll just go back. Do you really think she went back? And that leads into the conversation and the topic of discussion for today, and that is birthright citizenship, because that is what the Supreme Court is taking up today. And I want to read what Uncle Trump recently said. Here it is. Birthright citizenship is not about rich people from China and the rest of the world who want their children in hundreds of thousands more for pay to ridiculously become citizens of the United States of America. It is about the babies of slaves. We are the only country in the world that dignifies this subject with even discussion. Look at the dates of this long ago legislation, the exact end of the Civil War. The world is getting rich, selling citizenship to other countries, while at the same time laughing at how stupid our U.S. court system has become. Tariffs. Dumb judges and justices will not a great country make. Had a little typo at the end, I think. But anyway, you get the gist of it. He's right. This was for the descendants of slaves. Simple and plain. This wasn't for, some random Joe Blow over in China to come over and have their kids and run back to China, but now their kid is an American citizen. It's crazy.
As a Fox News alert, next week the Supreme Court is slated to revisit President Trump's birthright citizenship executive order. Now, it directs all U.S. government agencies to refuse issuing citizenship documents to children born to illegal immigrants or children who do not have at least one parent who is an American or a lawful permanent resident. Now, it's a law President Trump says is in place all over the world, and he's right. You're looking at that map. And if he wins in court, he would effectively cripple the booming birth tourism industry. You heard me right. Now, that is described by a Senate Homeland Security Committee report in this quote: expecting mothers traveling to the United States to obtain U.S. citizenship for their children. The report goes on to say obtaining U.S. citizenship for their children is a hedged bet, a rainy day fund for a better life. And while birth tourism from China is the most common, people from countries like Russia and Mexico take advantage of it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's from all over the place, all over the place. I mean, you guys saw the map there, and if you want a little more insight on what is happening here, check this out.
In China alone, we have identified more than 1,000 birth tourism companies that are almost exclusively focused on the United States. Our federal government does not track this information because there is no centralized collection of information on the nationality of parents who are giving birth. China, however, has done estimates themselves, and the numbers are eye-popping. The Chinese government gave an estimate a few years ago. Their estimate was that on average 50,000 Chinese citizens a year were giving birth in the United States or at U.S. territories like Saipan. There are others like Professor Salvatore Barbonis from Australia who believes that number is higher. He's estimated 100,000. There was a research firm in China that estimated in 2018 alone 180,000 managed to give birth in the United States. No one knows what the actual number is, and that is the challenge that we face today. If you do the math, if you look at the ramping up of this activity over the last 13 years, and you take the ballpark estimates, you are looking at roughly 1 million, quote unquote, U.S. citizens who are being raised in the People's Republic of China today. If you look at the websites of these birth tourism companies, they will tell you who is hiring them. These are not political dissidents. These are military officers, people from the Ministry of Propaganda, people that are high-ranking officials in the Chinese Communist Party. In other words, these are part of the CCP establishment.
1,000 different agencies. In 2018 alone, possibly 180,000 people, Chinese individuals, were born here in America, giving them birthright citizenship. In 1 year alone. 1 year alone. And yet liberals and Democrats will tell you that it's not a problem. It's not a problem.
And see, in my opinion, every single one of their citizenship should be revoked because it was done in a way where were their parents even naturalized? Really? So you just came here, popped a squat, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm having my baby," and you go, right? Revoked. It should be completely revoked. That's just my opinion.
I think that is a major, major problem, especially in a world where, you know, you have so many threats and people trying to take down the United States. If I'm the leader of China, right? If I'm however you say his name, I can never pronounce it correctly. I'm sending people over here on purpose, pregnant women, right? Sending them here, making sure their kids are citizens, having them come back, training up their citizens. I'm hitting them with all types of propaganda. Hate America, hate America, hate America, right? Same way Iran was to their kids. I'm radicalizing these folks, and then I'm sending them back to America once they get older. I mean, at the end of the day, they're a citizen of America, right? Can't deny them. And then the moment that the United States wants to step out of line, or the moment that I'm ready to strike, even if America hasn't stepped out of line, now I have millions upon millions of cells inside of the United States of America. American citizens. Congratulations. I've destroyed you from the inside out. Right? Mm-hmm. Because that's the only true way America could fall, is from the inside. You know, we all know the famous quote of a gun behind every blade of grass, right? You're not going to invade America's shores and take over. That ain't happening. So how do you destroy it? From the inside. Mm-hmm. Slowly. Over time. Right? And then, once the crack is big enough, you set off the explosion. You set off the millions upon millions of cells inside of America. You set them off, right? That's just me coming up with that off the top of the head, right? I'm sure there's a lot more elaborate playing that that they have to try to take over us, but yeah, man, this is a huge problem. I agree with Stephen Miller on this one.
Birthright citizenship is the biggest, costliest scam in financial history. An illegal alien can come here 9 months pregnant or on a tourist visa, 9 months pregnant, have a baby. That baby is then declared an automatic citizen, which then entitles the entire family to come here and live here, and every one of them can get welfare. Yes, they can get unlimited welfare, applying as the custodian of this citizen, so-called child. The biggest financial ripoff of Americans in history, not to mention the fact that it is the #1 magnet for illegal immigration and invasion, and that is used by foreign governments to conduct espionage against the United States. Because now, see, we can keep out a foreign spy who has a visa, who's trying to get permission to board an airplane. But what happens when a foreign government uses this ridiculous birthright scam in order to create automatic citizens who then grow up as assets of a foreign government? So it's a major national security threat. The 14th Amendment, the provisions in question were ratified for the children of freed slaves. You can go read the minutes of the debate. They were talking about the children of freed slaves after the Civil War.
Yeah, no, you're 100%
right. The idea that this was meant to provide illegal alien children with automatic citizenship. Do you really think that in the 19th century, 3/4 of states all got together to pass an amendment to say that people that Congress has forbidden from entering here can have automatic children citizens? I mean, the idea is so far beyond even the outer limits of imagination. No human being who suggests it should be taken seriously.
Yes, I'm telling you. I agree with Stephen Miller, right? This is absolutely ridiculous. This shouldn't even be a question. This shouldn't even be a question. But if I'm being completely honest, I see this as like a 70-30 type of deal, maybe 60-40, meaning that there's a 60% chance that the Supreme Court rules in favor of birthright citizenship and rules against Trump's executive order, and only about a 40% chance that they actually rule in favor of Trump's executive order. If I'm just being completely honest. With all of that being said, if I'm just being honest, which, hey, you know, I'm always keep it 100 with y'all, it's more than likely going to fail. Now, is it guaranteed? No, it's not like zero, but it's also not, hey, there's a 90% chance that we're going to be successful. I'd say it's, you know, about a 40% chance. 40% chance if I had to put a number on it. That's my number. But what do you guys think? Should birthright citizenship be a thing?
And you would think, you know, with it being like a 6-3 conservative majority, that this would be a no-brainer. But again, people have been conditioned to breaking the law. And I'm just going to say it like that. They have. Because if they weren't, we wouldn't have birthright. We wouldn't have this birther tourism situation, right? People have grown accustomed to breaking the law, and they have been allowed. Again, there's that word. They've been allowed to do it. There has been no accountability. Okay? We, the people, have not held these politicians accountable to what they are supposed to do. The only individuals within our 3 branches that can change, right, the law when it comes to immigration under the naturalization clause, it's Congress. That's it. Now, everybody hangs their hat on the Chinese national. It wasn't even a national because his parents were here illegally, so there weren't nationals. But that individual, they hang their hat on that dissenting opinion that stated, well, because he was born here, just soil, he is allowed citizenship. And from there, it has been bastardized. It has been completely just taken advantage of. Saw a video that he started out with the woman from Nigeria talking about, oh, well, if I can't afford it, then it's any other. No, you purposely came here so you can get dual citizenship for your kid. You know exactly what you're doing. Again, there's birth tourism websites. We're going to get into that in just a second. But I wanted to talk to you guys, just about something I had a question on. And I was really surprised at the answer from Garak. But my question was, can a member of Congress be in violation of their duty to America if they create policies that support illegal immigration? Right? So members of Congress hold plenary power over immigration under the U.S. Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 grants Congress authority to establish a uniform rule of naturalization, and through the necessary and proper clause, plus inherits sovereign powers, broad control over who may enter or remain in the United States. Supreme Court precedent has long affirmed this as nearly complete legislative authority, allowing Congress to set rules for aliens that would be unconstitutional if applied to citizens, without courts showing strong deference to political branches on border or immigration matters. So here's their oath of office. Every member of Congress takes an oath of office, right? I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestics, that I will bear the true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God, right? I'm glad they have that. So help me God. You have to say it. This requires supporting the Constitution and faithfully executing legislative duties. Duty to America is not a separate legal term, but aligns with upholding constitutional governance, including laws on sovereignty, borders, and the rule of law. The Constitution does not explicitly mandate any specific immigration policy, right? Restrictive, expansive, or otherwise. It empowers Congress to legislate on the subject. Okay. So, can policy supporting illegal immigration violate this duty? Legally, no, which is crazy, right? So, creating or voting for policies that some view as supporting illegal immigration, right? Amnesty provisions, sanctuary like funding, restrictions, reduced enforcement mechanisms, expanded visas, and humanitarian protections fall squarely within Congress's constitutional authority. Congress writes the Immigration and Nationality Act and can amend it to expand legal pathways, adjust enforcement priorities indirectly through appropriations, or alter consequences for unlawful presence. Such actions represent policy choices, not automatic violations of the oath. Disagreement over wisdom, cost, fiscal security, cultural, or impacts on rule of law does not equate to constitutional breach. So courts treat immigration as a political question, largely immune from judicial second guessing on policy merits. So the executive branch, via DHS and ICE, handles day-to-day enforcement with prosecutorial discretion, but Congress sets the underlying statutory framework and funding. Now, ethically and normatively, this is contested and depends on one's view of duty to America, right? Critics argue that policies facilitating or tolerating widespread unlawful entry presence undermines sovereignty, the rule of law, by signaling that immigration statutes need not be strictly followed. National security, public resources, and the integrity of legal immigration processes. In this perspective, legislatures prioritizing other interests, humanitarian, economic, political, over broader security, could be seen as failing their oath by not defending the constitutional order against domestic threats to governance or by weakening the nation's ability to control its territory, a core sovereign attribute. Now, supporters counter the immigration policy involves balancing multiple constitutional values, due process for those present, economic benefit under commerce powers, humanitarian traditions, and Congress legitimately debates enforcement levels. Illegal immigration often stems from statutory gaps, backlogs, or executive choices. Legislative responses are how the system self corrects. Blanket accusations of disloyalty risk politicizing the oath. So, no court has held that voting for specific immigration legislation violates the oath. The oath binds members to the Constitution's structure and processes, not to any particular policy outcome. Policy disputes are resolved through elections, legislation, oversight, or internal congressional discipline. Now, accountability mechanisms. If a member's actions cross into clearly illegality, right, they face criminal prosecution, internal discipline, elections, voters ultimately decide fitness via the ballot. Impeachment does not apply to members of Congress, right? Like the president or the vice president. So there is no enforceable legal mechanism to remove or punish a member solely for policies that support illegal immigration, as that would require courts or other branch to override legislative judgment on a core Article 1 power, something the separation of powers and plenary doctrine strongly discourage. So, in short, members of Congress cannot be in legal violation of their duty for exercising their constitutional power to shape immigration policy, even if the resulting laws or funding choices lead to higher levels of unlawful immigration. So, in short, and I just want to, before I read on, so basically, yeah, all these policies that they're writing in these different states now, those are outside of Congress, but that's a whole different situation. But Congress can do it, and they've done it. And it's not unlawful for them to do it. That's the crazy part. That's the crazy part. So you know what that means? We need to get people out of office that don't care about this country, and we need to put people in office that do, period. We need to make sure that these people are not following self-interest, that they are going to do for the American people, period. That's what we have to be at. That's what we have to do. Or we're not going to have a country, period. Because there are people here that hate the United States to the core of their belly, and you just heard it. Doc really laid it out. You birth people here and you take them back to their home country and you teach them to hate the very country that they're connected to, the very country that they can benefit from. You teach them to hate that country and then come and destroy it. It's disgusting. Makes no sense. But this is where we are. So whether such policies breach a broader moral or patriotic duty to prioritize American sovereignty and legal order is a matter of political philosophy and voter judgment, not settled constitutional law. So robust debate on enforcement, legal immigration levels, and broader security is inherent to the system the framers designed. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have legal immigration, we don't have a country. Here's my thing. We have over 300 ports of legal entry into this country. We have a legal immigration process. And for that to be circumvented, not only circumvented, for our legislatures, House and Senate, to support illegal immigration is extremely harmful to all of us. What are you doing? We have a legal pathway. Why are you encouraging people to come here illegally? What is wrong with you? They all need to be primaried. They all need to be removed from office. In my opinion, and y'all know I'll get prison. I'm good with Leavenworth for all of them. Every single one of them. They don't deserve to be in any place of authority because they don't respect this country. You gotta go. You gotta go. All right. So we're going to look into this birthing tourism here.
A California woman has been sentenced to more than 3 years in prison for her role in birth tourism and in a scheme for birth tourism. That's where she helped Chinese women travel to the United States to deliver their babies so that they would automatically become American citizens. Our next guest calls this, quote, a scam for American citizenship. Let's bring in Peter Schweitzer, president of the Government Accountability Institute and author of the book Invisible Coup. Peter, it's so great to have you on. Tell me more about how this scheme works.
Yeah, Rachel, what happened really beginning in 2011 and continuing to this day, the Chinese Communist Party has run articles in the People's Daily, other places, explaining to the Chinese elite that, hey, the American 14th Amendment says if your child is born in the United States, fly there, and your child can be a U.S. citizen. So this massive industry has evolved, primarily in California, also in China, where, people in China will pay $60,000 or so. They will fly to the United States, the pregnant mother. They will lie on their visa application. That's where these criminal charges come into place. They say we're not going to have a child. We're just here as tourists. They give birth here. They're given the birth certificate. They fly back to China where the child will be raised in China. The problem is, Rachel, that when they turn 18, that child will be a U.S. citizen, even though they grow up in communist China. It's a massive, massive industry.
So what can the U.S. government do about this?
It's a good question. There's not a lot. The Trump administration has done a fantastic job. This was not done, obviously, in the Biden administration or the Obama administration, of charging people with visa fraud. If you are coming to the United States and you're coming here with the intention of having a medical procedure like giving birth, you're required to disclose that on your visa. This industry says, don't disclose that. Tell them you're coming as a tourist. So you can do that. The key issue is going to be before the Supreme Court on birthright citizenship. And just to give you an idea of scale, Rachel, our federal government does not track this at all. We have no idea how many mothers from China have done this with their children. The Chinese government has looked at it, and they say it's been 100,000 a year for the past 13 years. So we're looking at more than 1 million U.S. citizens that are being raised in China. When they turn 18, Rachel, they're going to be able to vote, donate to political campaigns, and apply for government jobs in the United States.
Yeah, well, whatever Americans are assisting in this scam, shame on them. It's treasonous what they're doing. And I want to get to the next topic, but very quickly, because I think it's really important. Why are the Chinese doing this? Because President Trump has this eye on the Chinese. He's kicking them out of our hemisphere, but they're finding ways around. Why are the Chinese trying to do this? What is it part of?
Yeah, that's the really big question. We know a couple of things. Number one, the Chinese government is encouraging members of its elite. That means military officers, intelligence officers, propagandists. They've all done this. The Chinese government is encouraging them to do it. That's data point number one. The second point we have to realize is they did this in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong, at one point around 2010, almost half of the babies being born in Hong Kong were from mainland China. So they had to end the practice of birthright citizenship because they saw it for what it was, a subversive effort. And I think there's no other conclusion but that. This is a sophisticated form of weaponized immigration as a form of subversion by the Chinese government.
Absolutely. And they were involved with the Venezuelans and many of the cartels in the weaponized migration through our border. This is a way for them to attack us without going to war. They do it through migration and other means, fentanyl, et cetera. Great stuff, Peter. Let's move to this because you have a new book. It's called The Invisible Coup, which unveils potential national security implications that come with mass migration into the United States. I'm going to read an excerpt because I think this is really important. This one's about Mexico. Which is run by a communist who has very close ties with China and the CCP. That's Claudia Sheinbaum. Your book says Mexico has established a vast network of over 50 consulates in the United States that have become beacons for political activism and resisting assimilation. Mexico does not want young migrants in the United States to be loyal to the United States. It wants them instead to cling to Mexico's resentments about its northern neighbor. It accomplishes this by invading our classrooms. Local U.S. school administrators, either out of ignorance or sympathy for the cause, are happy to oblige. Talk to me more about this. This is very, very dangerous.
Yeah, the thing to understand here is that they have a massive resentment of the United States, and they speak openly about how mass migration is a means by which they are going to be exerting sovereignty inside the United States. They sometimes call it Reconquista. And this may seem like a really weird kind of fringe theory, except most of the Mexican political elite talk about it. I quote dozens of them in the book, but they've also, Rachel, set up an infrastructure. So China and the United Kingdom have 6 and 7 consulates in the United States. Mexico has 53. And as I lay out in the book, they are involved in political action, partisan political action. They are helping Democrats and fighting against Republicans getting elected. And the second thing they're doing is they are fueling the chaos in our streets. You have Mexican officials that were involved in organizing the LA riots. There's a consulate up in St. Paul, Minnesota, that is involved in organizing the anti-ICE protests. It's a massive, massive problem. We've clearly hit a nerve. The book is #1 on the New York Times list, and Claudia Sheinbaum was asked about the book yesterday in Mexico City, and she was not pleased to talk about it.
Of course she's not. And by the way, that's why you see all those Mexican flags at these riots and rallies that they have. And they don't need 52 or 53 consulates. They're our closest neighbor. This is something I hope Marco Rubio will look into. Clearly, you only need a few. And so here's, by the way, we got a response from the Mexican president, Sheinbaum, the communist who went to school in Berkeley. This is what she says. This is absolutely false. Consulates have a role determined by international laws, and what our consulates essentially do is provide protection and assistance to Mexicans in the United States. That is their job. It is fundamental, and that is what they are dedicated to do. Last word, Peter. Oh, he's gone. I'm sorry. We're going to have to end this here, but it's a great topic, and we promise to follow up on it.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just mind-boggling to me. You hate the country, but you want to benefit from it. You want to destroy it within, but you want to benefit from it. We don't need you here. And I'm so glad that all this is coming out. I'm grateful. So for all of you politicians in office, the Redemption Party is coming for you. Yeah, we're going to run candidates that are going to be servants of the people and not politicians. And Democrats, you are bleeding support. Oh, yeah. As much as people, show long lines, even at, the Capitol here in Atlanta. Look how many people are running for Democrats. They don't even want to be under the Democratic Party, but they're running as Democrats because it's easier. It's a lot more difficult to be a Republican. You know why? Because the Democrats infiltrated the Republican Party, and they're one and the same. But there are a few people that do uphold Republican values. They are very far, few and in between, but you have to find them. But this evil is going to be rooted out. Again, that's why the Redemption Party is here. USARedemptionParty.com. Check us out. But let's get to this next video talking about birther tourism.
America pregnant and their babies go home as U.S. citizens. This ultimate accessory is brought to you by the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution that allows, if you are born in the United States, you are a U.S. citizen. And authorities tell the I-Team tonight some women are lying to federal authorities and paying big money to make it happen.
Most of the patients I've taken care of are from Middle Eastern countries.
Dr. Mia Norlin is an OB/GYN in Chicago. She says some of her patients have traveled here from other countries and paid out of pocket to deliver their babies in the United States.
We looked into it to make sure that it was legal. I mean, it's different than most of our patients.
According to this just released federal government report, the U.S. birth rate is at a 32-year low. But according to the Center for Immigration Studies, an organization that favors restricting immigration, there is a birth rate here that is on the rise. The number of babies delivered via birth tourism.
Birth tourism is the practice of people from other countries coming to the United States specifically for the purpose of having a child here, knowing that that child will be considered a U.S. citizen.
The U.S. is one of only 35 countries in the world that recognizes birthright citizenship.
The whole concept of birth tourism and the outcry against it raises some pretty basic questions about our Constitution.
ABC 7 legal analyst Gil Sofer notes that there's no official agency tracking tourism births. Annual estimates range from 35,000 to hundreds of thousands.
We know that there are tens of thousands of people who list a foreign address on their child's birth certificate.
Foreign websites advertise packages costing up to $150,000 that include medical costs, high-end accommodations, and help with paperwork to obtain U.S. passports for the newborns. Companies touting American citizenship will provide easier access to U.S. universities, and that American-born children can sponsor their parents' immigration to the United States once they turn 21.
I actually think it's about time that somebody tested these theories and that we found a real case that could go to the Supreme Court and be decided once and for all who is entitled to U.S. citizenship.
Just before the midterm elections, President Donald Trump said he wanted to issue an executive order ending birthright citizenship for children born in the U.S. to unauthorized immigrant parents, but made no mention of birth tourism babies.
I think that the lack of attention to this, at least on a political level, is intentional.
Sonia Kanzader is an attorney with the O'Neill Institute at Georgetown University. She is a U.S. citizen based on being born here to undocumented immigrant parents.
There's this burgeoning industry of people coming in to get citizenship for their children kind of more as accessories. They're not staying in the country. They're using it just more as kind of just a status symbol.
Federal raids in Southern California and a several-year investigation led to these birth tourism business owners.
Now I had to pause it right there. She was born here, but her parents were illegal. She's not a citizen. So this is the person that I want off the soil. That woman right there is who I want removed, and anybody else like them, because that's an intentional harm to come here and pop a baby out, and it's our fault as the United States to allow it. This is being allowed. That is not how the 14th Amendment was set up to function, because if it was, let's just stand back for a second. Okay, then why do we have immigration laws? Why? What's the point of them? What is the point of getting naturalized? What is the point of a legal immigration system if anybody can just come and pop a squat and have a baby? You can't square it. You cannot square it. It's because it's not legal. But you work around it. It's very sad. So I want to get to some of the comments. Thank you, Spud. He says Daddy Biden and it said they're the new majority and we have to back them. Right. And he's talking about Mexico because he did say that. He says, yeah, and the Mexicans are going to be here. Y'all are going to have to work with them. He was talking to us Black people when that little Zoom call that they had. And Patty Cake says it's not just the Chinese. The other countries do it too. All of them do it. It's disgusting. And Spud says that's the U.S. aid money they're paying with, I assume, sometimes $150,000. There's an NGO out there that's helping to support this. I just haven't found them yet. Spud says they better treat them like Dred Scott. Yeah, it's crazy. Because what if we didn't have, let's just say we didn't have the 14th Amendment, just for sake of argument. What happens to all these people if it's not just soil? They would not be citizens here, and they would be immediately removed from the soil. But then we wouldn't be recognized, myself, nor my children, because I am a descendant of slaves on both sides of my family. Okay, so definitely here, anchored and rooted. Without that 14th Amendment, my children are not citizens. That argument right there proves that it's not for just soil. So stop lying to people. It was meant for people who had to be made whole, because trying to go through the legal process of it went after the Emancipation Proclamation, where people should have been made whole. They had to put in a whole civil rights piece of legislation for people who should have been made whole once they were freed. You know why? Because we have a constitution that says all men are created equal. Why in the world do we have civil rights pieces of legislation? Doesn't make sense. But because you did not want to make people whole, they were still seen as animals. You got Dred Scott, and that piece and that case said you need to put in legislation to make these people whole. Okay, not just legislation. You need to put in a whole amendment in the Constitution to make them whole, even though we have a First Amendment that says all men are created equal. I'm going to always go back to that. All men are created equal. Yes, we are. And you don't get to get away from it. You don't get to make any excuses for it. But that applies to the citizens of this country. Not if you are here illegally. If you're here illegally, you need to go home, because you shouldn't be here. It doesn't apply to you. It's not yours. It's a privilege. It's not a right. Get off the soil. But see, I need more people like me in Congress to shut this down. Now, I've been asked before, am I running? Are you running for Congress? Are you going to get back in? I don't know, y'all, because it's kind of hard to run for office and manage the party. Can't do both. Got to make choices. But as you can see, birther tourism it's disgusting, and it's happening ad nauseum.
Being charged in January with fraud for instructing women to lie on visa applications and hide their pregnancies from airport customs agents.
It does feed into these larger organizations that are coaching these people to lie, that are absolutely gaming the system.
There is no data on how prevalent birth tourism is here. All of the major hospitals in Metro Chicago either denied or ignored I-Team requests for interviews. Dr. Mia Norland tells us she is surprised how many women from overseas blindly trust the U.S. medical system.
It's interesting and kind of worrisome to me that people, probably come here assuming that they're going to get the best medical care.
The Department of Homeland Security and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement ignored our repeated requests for interviews regarding birth tourism. Obviously, a sensitive subject.
Obviously.
Yeah. Now, that was done 2 years ago. That article. We know who was in office then. Okay, now I wanted to look at briefly. Let me see. I only can look at a little bit of it, y'all. So what I asked Grok is, can you compile a list of the top 10 birth tourism websites? So birth tourism to the United States is the primary purpose of obtaining citizenship for a child, is not permitted under current U.S. visa rules. Consular officers can deny B1 or B2 tourist visas if they believe this is the main intent. Many past operators face legal issues, raids, or shutdowns for visa fraud, money laundering, or related activities. Services must comply with all immigration and medical laws in the destination country. Okay, so because like I said, I just asked the question. Okay. So top notable birth tourism related websites. So they do have these websites and agencies. One is Dr. Parati, focuses on comprehensive maternity care in El Paso, Texas. iWorld, they offer programs starting at $19,900, including visa document assistance, travel organization insurance, and support for citizenship benefits. ASPOM Birth Services, they assist with maternity packages abroad, including USA and Canada. Baby in Brazil specializes in giving birth in Brazil. Have My Baby in Miami, South Florida concierge style service for foreigners seeking U.S. soil births, offering maternity coordination. Um, Martha, I'm sorry, Marta discusses and facilitates childbirth abroad, birth tourism as part of cross border reproductive services. And Vinay Shah, MD, provides obstetric care guidance for foreigners, immigrants, and tourists giving birth in the U.S., including on visitor visas. Yeah. And here's my thing. Anybody who comes here, I don't care who they are. If they're here on a visa and then they end up having their baby here, that was their intent. They need to be immediately deported and their child's citizenship needs to be immediately revoked, period. I don't care if they've gone through all this little fancy website tourism. It should be automatic revocation of your citizenship. So anybody who's been born here since doing this, all I'm saying is if your child is in China right now, 17 years old, and they were born here on the soil, they're not a U.S. citizen. They're in China. You are a Chinese national. Their citizenship needs to be revoked. No benefits. You are not a citizen of this country just because you were born on this soil. You're not. Your parents were citizens. You're not born. Stop it. It's just the pit of my belly just makes me upset. And Spud says they have Luke running for Congress down in Miami. You know he don't care. You know Luke does not care. Really? Yeah. Uncle Luke is no. So I say, can you list birthright citizenship policies and if they are legal under the Constitution? So birthright citizenship generally refers to two main legal principles for granting nationality at birth: just soil, right of soil citizenship based on the place of birth, and jus sanguis, right of birth, citizenship based on the nationality or citizenship of one or both parents. Now, here's the thing. If everybody's here illegally, then they get the just soil. See how it's working? It's disgusting. It's disgusting. I do not know how people live with themselves and just be like, oh yeah, you don't care about this country. You really do not. Now, as of 2026, approximately 33 out of 35 countries, right, provide unrestricted birthright citizenship under just soil. And these include the North America, United States, Canada, Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean, South America, and other regions. So exceptions commonly apply to children of foreign diplomats accredited to the country who are not considered subject to the jurisdiction of the host states. Some list vary slightly due to the nuances in law of recent minor adjustments, but the core group remains stable and heavily weighted toward the Western Hemisphere, right? So I did look up, aliens in the United States. Congress shall have the power, right, to make laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof. So 1903, it goes back to this Japanese immigrant, right? And this is the case that everybody hangs their hat on outside of the Fourth Amendment. 14th Amendment, sorry, and who it was actually written for. Again, just wanted to outline and highlight for Congress to establish a uniform rule of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. But that's their that is their wheelhouse. Now, let me just look up the 14th Amendment. As y'all see, I've been into it this morning. It's always something that I just want to read to people. It says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. If this was really just soil, this wouldn't be here. If this was really about just soil. Because a child being born here can't speak for themselves, but the parents can. And their parents, if they're here illegally, are subject to another jurisdiction that they belong to. They are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. That's why it says or naturalized. Supreme Court better get this right, because people have been abusing the 14th Amendment. And they've been living outside of the law, and it's been allowed. And everybody is suffering for it, and it needs to stop. Now, with that, let's take a quick break, because I know I've been going on and on and on. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get into some more of these news. We got some updates from Promethean, and I want to get to those. But thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, and we will see you on the other side.
Lineage, legacy, leverage. Genealogy is the lane. Community is the destination. But care, that's how we get there. At TBAT Task Force, we don't just research history. We reclaim what was stolen. For Black American descendants, proving who you are is the first step toward reparative justice and recognition.
Get 4 hours of expert research, a verified certificate, and a care-based session to guide your next steps. A $155 contribution doesn't just fund your search, it fuels 5 community positions. It's a cycle of growth.
Ready to claim your history? Start your journey or book a free care call today. Your legacy is waiting.
Yes. So if you are ready to get your genealogy done, definitely check out the BlackAmericanTribe.com. That's BlackAmericanTribe.com, and they can help you with that. I've actually had my lineage done, and that's why I can say, where I'm from. And my father, he is really sweet. He actually put together for my sister and myself our genealogy and the families that we're connected to. And he did that for us when I was in my 20s. And so I was really appreciative of it, because it's something I can share with my children. And as I was going through my lineage check, I knew who people were already, because my dad had taken out the time to do that. So we need to remember who we are on this soil, because I know a lot of people go, oh, it doesn't matter. It matters. It matters, because that's how we keep our country. So don't ever say that it doesn't. And definitely check out the Black American Tribe when you have time. Now, I want to get into another article that I came across before we get to our Promethean update. And this really goes back to, who do Democrats really support?
Democratic strategy for 30 years, maybe, and it has failed to deliver for the people we care about most, the undocumented Americans that are in this country.
Yeah, that's why they didn't stand during the State of the Union. Remember that? Connecticut Senator right there, Chris Murphy, saying the left cares the most about undocumented Americans. It is something Texas Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne pointed out yesterday. Listen.
When Democrats tell you what they think, believe them. When they tell you what they are going to do, believe them. This is the party of defunding police. This is the party of defunding ICE.
And we are pleased to bring in right now Congresswoman of Texas, Beth Van Duyne. She's also the chairwoman of the Subcommittee on Economic Growth, Tax, and Capital Access, a member of the very important Ways and Means Small Business Committees. Great to see you, Congresswoman. We also heard from the president during the cabinet meeting today saying that they are a party in chaos. I don't even worry about the Democrats anymore, he says. And I think it is comments like this that Americans are wisened up to.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. Again, when Democrats tell you that they're going to tax you, believe them. When they tell you that they are going to prioritize illegal immigrants over U.S. citizens, believe them. And we're seeing it play out. We're seeing it play out right now in the Senate. We have a bill that we have passed. We've done our job in the House. We've sent it over to the Senate to fund Homeland Security. At a time when you're seeing what's going on in Iran, Venezuela, Mexico, we need our Coast Guard funded. We need FEMA funded. We need our TSA agents funded. We have sent over funding mechanisms, but they are holding that hostage, holding the American traveler hostage because they are prioritizing illegal immigrants and they want to defund ICE. We're going to continue to fight it. I'm not sure the conversations that they've had in the Senate. It sounds like they just keep moving the bar. They say we'll do this, and when we meet them there, they keep moving it. So we'll see.
We just saw Senator Kennedy is going to hold a vote. So obviously, at least getting Democrats on the record is instrumental as well to show exactly what they're not willing to do. I want to play a little bit of Alabama Senator Katie Britt, who says there's an easy way to get both parties to the table and come up with a funding agreement. Here's what she says.
If the men and women in this building, if members of Congress, House or Senate weren't getting a paycheck right now, they'd be much more eager to come to the table and to have a conversation and to figure out a pathway forward.
So this is what she's saying. I mean, Congresswoman, is that something you would agree to, giving up your pay to incentivize a deal to get done?
I think it helps people who are here who are wealthy. We definitely have our wealthy members of Congress. We have our poor members of Congress. But if that would move the needle, I'm all for it. I don't think it's fair that we as federal employees should get paid if other federal employees are not getting paid. That said, if you're going to be a voting member in this House and you're voting not to pay them, maybe we should discriminate. And those people who vote against opening up the government have their paychecks stopped. Again, TSA is doing God's work right now, and I have been traveling a ton over the last several weeks, and these people are dealing with stress. If you are in Houston, you're waiting in 4-hour lines. In Atlanta, be nice to your TSA agents. They are working and they are not getting a paycheck right now.
Yeah, well, we did see Delta stopping some of the congressional escorts. So members of Congress in some Delta checkpoints won't have to get their escorts. So maybe that also will give some incentive, I guess. I want to talk about the Outpatient Surgery Access Act, which you introduced. It's aiming to modernize Medicare payments for ambulatory surgical centers. Tell us the importance of this, especially for seniors, Congresswoman.
Okay, and I just want to point out how she didn't say she was going to give up her paycheck. She was like, we have rich members, we have poor members, but you ain't giving up your paycheck. It should be an automatic. If you do not pass the budget, you don't get paid. House and Senate, period. That is just how it should be. You are over the budget. And if you cannot pass a clean budget, not a continuing resolution, a clean appropriations budget, if you do not pass the budget, you do not get paid. Yeah, that's how it should be. You want to shut down? Fine. You don't get paid. But again, we need all of you primaried and replaced because you don't know what you're doing. You're horrible at your job. Now, somebody actually brought this up. So TSA, for example, should be privatized. And people were like, why would you want it privatized? Because obviously the government can't do their job. Because if it was privatized right now, you couldn't hold people's lives in the balance. You couldn't hurt them. You couldn't use individuals as leverage. The government, you guys are horrible business owners. Stop trying to own anything. You suck at your job. That's all I got to say. You're horrible at it. The worst. Okay. Saw, seen, and report. the how should I say it? The likability of Congress right now is negative 66%. Not like they're at 66, they're negative. It's in the negative how many people despise our own government because you're not working for the people. And it's showing. Again, this is why, we're not a communist country. We are not a socialist country. And there are communist countries and there are socialist countries out there. So if that's what you want, go there. But we need you to stop trying to destroy our country. And if you're members of Congress trying to destroy our country, we need you out. You have plenty of other places to go. And a lot of you come from those other countries. And I'm okay with you leaving Congress and going back. Period. But you're horrible business owners. You do not know how to run anything. So stop getting involved in things. We need to privatize TSA. And this should show this right here, this little test that we keep going back and forth. Now, as far as the Department of Homeland Security, right? If you want to keep that, that's fine. But TSA actually deals with airports. They actually deal with consumers. All right? It needs to be privatized because the federal government cannot do their job. You haven't passed a clean budget since 2012. It's 2026. Just horrible. Now, let's get to our Promethean update.
One of the most remarkable statements of the past week at the CPAC conference.
I think Donald Trump understands the use of power better than probably any president that we've had, at least since Roosevelt and maybe in American history. I think my father and my uncle would support. I think that if they were around today, they would be making the same kind of choice that President Trump is about Iran, about Ukraine, about trying to raise up the middle class.
He also pointed out that he was raised in a Democratic Party that was very opposed to NAFTA. But the moment Trump came out against it, the Democrats flipped and supported free trade. Those two statements tell you more about what is really going on in the world than endless hours of media coverage or doom scrolling. The media is lost in the fog of war and politics. Take The Economist. They're telling you that Iran has the advantage and a month of bombing has accomplished nothing. Or the mainstream press, which is telling you that the No King's Day rallies featuring adults who dressed up as frogs and featuring drag queens represent the political mood of the nation. RFK's remarks cut through all of that. The binary choices of left versus right, war versus anti-war are being shattered as Donald Trump reasserts real American policies and liberates us from the strategic and economic straitjacket imposed since the end of World War II. These aren't new ideas. They are the oldest American ideas, suppressed and now coming back. I'm Susan Kokinda. I remember Kennedy's uncle and father. I was on the ground in California campaigning for Robert F. Kennedy Sr. when he was shot. And like his son, I've spent more than 5 decades fighting for the opportunity that Donald Trump has given us to bring those principles back to life. So if you have a sense that something very big is happening, that the world is being rearranged in ways the media can't explain, then hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons, stay in touch, and help us expand our reach. Here's what we're covering today. First, the Iran conflict and how it represents a complete break with 6 decades of imperial foreign policy. Second, the significance of J.D. Vance in the negotiations. And third, how Scott Bessent and Peter Navarro are defining the battle by name. That is, the American system versus the British system. So let's start with who is no longer in the room and why that changes everything. This week, the empire's own institutions confirmed it. Chatham House, the British foreign policy flagship think tank, published a piece with a headline that could have come from this channel. Britain's handling of the Iran war shows the limits of UK power. Chatham House also announced that the House of Lords International Relations and Defense Committee will come to Chatham House where they will discuss the question of what they now call the not-so-special relationship and whether it can survive Trump 2.0. The Empire is writing its own autopsy, and the conservative treehouse gave it the headline it deserved. British Defense Minister outlines how the UK Navy will defend the West as soon as they locate their ships. With those tools of the Great Game sidelined, watch what is actually happening. Right now in Islamabad, the foreign ministers of Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Egypt are sitting together for the purpose of opening up a dialogue between the United States and Iran, not managing the conflict, ending it. Britain is not in that room, neither is the EU or NATO. And when Pakistan's foreign minister announced that Iran had agreed to allow 20 more Pakistani-flagged ships through the Strait of Hormuz, he addressed his statement on X directly to J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, and Steve Witkoff. Not London, not Brussels, to the Americans. And President Trump himself reposted it within hours. So you have a sovereign Islamic quartet with no colonial history in Iran, no Sykes-Picot baggage, and no 75 years of imperial management to answer for, trying to broker a sovereign resolution. That's a genuinely new thing, and it's happening because the old managers are no longer in the room. And it is important that you see that this is new. The dominant media narratives are written to keep you angry and impotent. Promethean action puts you on this new stage of history and gives you the in-depth analysis you need. So head on over to our website and sign up for our free newsletter. The link is in the description. Now, the Empire being out of the room only matters if someone else is in it and acting like an American. And that's where Vice President J.D. Vance comes in. President Trump confirmed that Vice President Vance will be the lead negotiator for the U.S. And the well-sourced Barack Ravid at Axios gave that background. He says, Vance's seniority in the administration and his well-documented opposition to open-ended conflicts overseas, White House officials say, make him a more attractive interlocutor for the Iranians than Witkoff and Kushner. Partly for those reasons, Witkoff recommended Vance as lead negotiator. And Axios quotes another senior administration advisor saying, if the Iranians can't strike a deal with Vance, they won't get a deal. And the article makes clear that Vance has directly challenged Netanyahu on Israel's overly optimistic assessment on regime change and on its endgame goals, both of which diverge from the administration's. The neoconservative model that ran American Middle East policy for 30 years never did that. American foreign policy was just a tool in the British toolkit alongside Israeli foreign policy and Muslim Brotherhood fostered extremism. The result? 30 years of managed conflict and no resolution. Vance is doing something different, acting as an American official representing American interests, including our interests in not fighting a forever war. Now, Vance's role is public, but it does echo something older. It echoes the role that Robert F. Kennedy Sr. played in the Cuban Missile Crisis. JFK sent his brother, the Attorney General, to conduct secret back-channel discussions with the Soviets because he knew that RFK shared his agenda, the American agenda, and that the Soviets would understand that. This is what RFK Jr. is pointing at, not a specific tactic, but a disposition. And that disposition has largely been absent since FDR last exercised American power during World War II. The endgame of that war was to defeat fascism. But Roosevelt's stated intention, unfulfilled because he died before the war ended, was to free the world from British 18th century methods. Unfortunately, those methods remained intact until now, as managed conflicts kept especially the Mideast from economic development and peace. Now, the same break you're watching in Islamabad is happening simultaneously in trade and monetary policy. And this week, both Peter Navarro and Scott Bessent put a name to it. In a Politico interview, presidential trade advisor Navarro made clear that this administration is carrying out a revolution.
Our trade policy is fundamentally revamping the entire world order in the language of the other side. Donald Trump going back in history, channeling Alexander Hamilton, channeling McKinley, channeling Henry Clay, is basically adopting an America First policy where the protection against unfair trade makes us stronger.
So Navarro joins Trade Ambassador Jamieson Greer, Treasury Secretary Bessent, and Vice President Vance in affirming that this administration's policy is that of the champions of the American system. And Navarro then made clear who represents the old order. He was asked about Mark Carney, former governor of the Bank of England and now Canadian Prime Minister, who is currently organizing a WTO coalition to try and check Americans' trade policy. Navarro was direct. He said, "It's typical Carney behavior. We've got a problem in Great Britain and Canada with liberal Trump haters." Now, let's look at Carney's former employer, the Bank of England, which was suddenly in the news this week in a story that was overshadowed by Iran coverage and the government shutdown. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent went to war with the Financial Times, the mouthpiece of the City of London, on the issue of the Bank of England. The FT published a story claiming Bessent had praised the Bank of England as a model for restructuring the Federal Reserve. And before they published it, Bessent had given them an on-the-record denial, and they ran it anyway on anonymous sources. So Bessent shot back with vehemence. By publishing this explicitly false story, the FT has officially become tabloid trash for market participants. In short, FT has literally manufactured an entirely fake policy position for me and the administration. And here's the punchline. He went on to say, "There is much to be said about the storied Bank of England, but any recreation of its operating framework on this side of the Atlantic has never been contemplated. The shameful journalists and editors at the FT are shocking in their meretriciousness, lack of standards, and general intellectual libertinism. It is the worst tradition of Fleet Street to manufacture news rather than report it." So what's really going on here? The Bank of England model is the City of London's preferred architecture for central banking. Bessent is rejecting that. He wants to narrow the Fed's mandate and return to financial instruments and credit instruments that will serve productive economic activity. When the FT tried to claim his reform agenda for their framework, he smacked it down with force. The American system revival that Navarro is pursuing in trade, that Bessent is pursuing in monetary policy, that Vance is expressing in foreign policy, it's all one thing. So whether it's the FT or Carney's rules-based order or the Chatham House autopsy, it's the same old imperial order responding to Trump's new American agenda. Which takes us back to where we started. RFK Jr. at CPAC saying his father and uncle would support what Trump is doing in Iran and in the economy. What Kennedy is saying is that there is an older tradition that defines what American power is actually for. Not managing conflict for imperial financial interests, not free trade frameworks that drain American manufacturing, not central banking architectures designed in the City of London, but policies that support sovereign national development, productive economy, and policies that are actually for peace built through construction. Hamilton named it, FDR reasserted it, JFK tried to revive it, and Trump is the first president since then to bring it back to life. That is what is invisible inside the binary choices that the old order provides you. Pro-war or anti-war, free trade or socialism, Fed tightening or loosening. Every one of those binaries is a cage, designed to make the American system unspeakable. Well, Promethean action speaks the American system loud and clear. And once you see the tradition, the shape of what is happening becomes obvious. And that clarity is exactly what this channel exists to provide.
Yes, so definitely check out Promethean Update. They're on TikTok and YouTube. I'm not sure if they're on Instagram, but I'm sure they probably are. But I wanted to get into some more of this news before we end our Tell It All Tuesday broadcast. So we've got Trump allows Russian tanker to deliver oil to Cuba amid ongoing blockade. So a sanctioned Russian oil tanker was allowed to deliver oil to Cuba on Monday after President Trump told reporters he had no problem with other countries sending oil to Cuba. And I'm just reading the tops because I'm actually looking for an article. I don't see it in here, and I'm really surprised they don't have it in here, but we'll see. So why did the New York Times criticize Trump's new bomb? They've been criticizing. It's kind of crazy. Trump says he wants to seize Iranian oil, and WSJ says uranium as well. The FBI Director Kash Patel's old vacation photos, documents published by pro-Iranian hackers. Yeah, I heard about that. A million protests against Trump and a nationwide No Kings protest. The U.S. is preparing to send 10,000 troops to the Middle East for weeks of ground operations. I'm really hoping not, but here we are. And heavy use of Tomahawk missiles in Iran war raises questions about supply and cost. I had actually saw a video yesterday, and it had to do with let me see if I can find it because I don't see it in here. But apparently, and it was unfortunate, there was a pharmaceutical company in Israel and it was bombed. So let me see if I can find that. And thank you guys so much for joining me here today. Okay, there it goes. Oh, wow. Okay, because I heard about it last night. So I was like, okay, what is going on? So let me bring this up for you guys. Sometimes I do take all sides for granted because I'm like, oh, they've got that article. I'm like, we don't. Why? But why don't they? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I gotta talk to you guys about some of these things that I do find. That's why I have Tell It All Tuesday, so I can bring you news that you may not always see everywhere else. And I'm not sure how publicized. But again, it happened yesterday. And this article that I'm bringing you guys, once it pops up, I don't know why my computer is so slow. Oh my God. Sorry, y'all. Yes, add this to the stage. Like, what? Now we're waiting. Oh my goodness. Technology kills me. Again, I'm looking forward to getting Starlink. So I'm not going through this, not going of technology, because this should be really easy. I should be able to just bring my screen share up and it's literally just refusing. Just refusing to work with me. What is going on? Stop it. That's so weird to me. Like, it's literally, it just won't do it. It just will not bring up my screen share. Like, what are you doing? Okay, okay, I see my face is little. That's good. That's good. That means maybe? No? Okay. This is so weird to me. I'm so sorry, you guys. Technology is what it is. I am not sure what's going on with StreamYard today, but you know what? There's always something, right? There's always something different. There's always something new. Let me see. Let me go back. Oh my gosh, what is going on? Okay, really? What are you doing? Okay, now we can do it. Now we're doing this. Now we're doing this. Okay. All right, hopefully you guys can see it. I can see myself too. So it says U.S. Israeli strikes hit Iran, Iranian company producing drugs. So one of the largest companies producing anti-cancer, anesthetic, and specialized medicines was damaged in U.S.-Israeli strikes. Iran claimed. So, Tehran, U.S.-Israeli strikes hit on Tuesday one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in Iran. Okay, so it wasn't in Israel, it was in Iran, which produces anesthetic and cancer drugs, the Iranian government said. So during the U.S. and regime's attack on the morning of Tuesday, one of the largest companies producing anti-cancer, anesthetic, and specialized medicines was damaged, and the drug production line was damaged, the government said on an X post. The pharmaceutical company is owned by the Social Yeah. So unfortunately, yes, that is what's happening. And again, like I said, I thought the company was in Israel. I did not realize it was in Iran. And there were talks of President Trump possibly wanting to destroy desalinization plants. I'm not sure how true that is or not. Haven't heard any reports that that's been hit, but that could be considered a war crime. Now, the question is, will this be considered a war crime? Because it is a medical facility. Now, can it be rebuilt? Yes, but why would you attack a medical facility that literally supports part of the world when it comes to pharmaceuticals? So this is not only damaging Iran, this is going to damage people in the region and in different parts of the world, people that depend on this. So, this is getting out of hand, in my opinion. So there's 2 new polls find low support for the Iran war among Jewish Americans. I think it's low support among everybody, to be quite honest. Like, I've got fatigue at this point. And my reason for fatigue is not so much because it's been going on for so long. I think it's the back and forth and wanting it to be over. It's that kind of anxiety, right? It's that kind of fatigue. I don't want any lives lost. I definitely don't want anybody being put in harm's way for this. Because again, why are we here and what do we want the end result to look like? I know with the Promethean updates, it's like there's a changing of the guard and there's a shifting and there's all these things happening. But at the same time, people are dying. They are losing their lives. We're now at the point where Israel just bombed Iran again. What? Stop it. Like, I need you to stop. I need you to stop. I need you to, Israel, I need you to sit down and start negotiating. Because now this has become something that we are a part of, the United States. And it's not a good look. We have our own people to take care of. And so that's what I want us to definitely get back to. Now, on Saturday, it was like U.S. was preparing to send 10,000 troops to the Middle East. And I'm really hoping that no one has touched ground, but we have yet to see if that's going to be happening. What's going on and where is it going on? So I definitely want to keep those in prayer that have lost loved ones during this conflict. If anybody has relatives that have been deployed or deported, it's like, deployed and stationed. Those are the words I'm looking for. We really need to keep these individuals in prayer because war hurts everybody, right? From the families to the friends to the communities and beyond that. We don't want to be in anything that's senseless. And again, this still comes back to having better people in political positions. So definitely check out USA, redemptionparty.com, because we need people that are going to be servants of the people and not politicians. That is the focus, and that is where it needs to be and needs to remain. So thank you guys so much for joining me here for this Tell It All Tuesday. Tomorrow we will be back with Women in Wellness Wednesday. It will be open mic. So if there's anybody out there that wants to be a part of the broadcast, please make sure you send me a direct message, or you can be a part of the show by emailing unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com. So again, thanks for joining me here for Tell It All Tuesday. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.